Shri Chaitanya Manupastam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upam Karamayam Dadati Svavadantikam Namam Vishnu Pada Krishna Pista Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitya Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachoyne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasata Rishatarine Manchakapa Jubasha Kripa Sinivevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Okay, thank you for coming once again to lesson number 4. Before we start, let us quickly refresh our memory. Yesterday, what was the topic? Without looking in the notes now.
Different aspects of unity.
Yeah, first of all, what's the heading of the whole discussion?
Qualification for acceptation.
Yes, the qualities we need to have in order to be eager for shelter. And then, yes, actually humility being the main one, and humility manifests in all different kinds of ways. And what were the 3 main qualities which we need to have? Who remembers? Usually I like to give out the materials, otherwise you were busy there with materials. You know, yes, Olga, don't put the materials there, just put them here and I give the command to distribute them, otherwise nobody's listening and everybody's busy with the materials. So, what are the 3 qualities? Yes?
Helplessness and respect.
Okay, good. And we were discussing in quite detail these 3 qualities: inquisitiveness, helplessness, and respect. Right? Without these qualities, we will not feel impelled to take shelter on all levels. Not only sheltering relationships, even shelter of Guru, shelter of Krishna, shelter of the holy name. What the hell is that? Sounds like a cricket game or something. Yeah, so without these qualities we will not feel impelled to take shelter. Right. Yeah, don't close it, because that door has a bit of a funny thing that you can't open it properly from outside. So if you close it, if somebody comes late, then they can't get in and they think we locked the door so nobody can come. You can open it like before. Yes. Okay, so now I assume most of you have already the sheets now for this session? No? So then where are they? Can we distribute them? Olga, where are the materials for this session? So what's the topic for today? Who knows? Anyway, we'll wait until everybody has the sheet. Usually the quickest way to do it is that one of the ladies distributes it to the ladies and one of the men quickly gets up and distributes it to the men, and then it goes real fast. Okay, so topic for today is the qualities required to be able to give shelter. So who remembers why is this of greatest importance to all of us? There's 2 main reasons. Why do we have to know very clearly what are the qualities we have to have in order to give shelter to others? What are the main 2 reasons why it's very important to know this? I mentioned it once in the very beginning, but you might not remember. Hang on, you lift your hand, please. Don't just shout. Don't just shout out. Lift your hand. Just lift your hand. And if anybody else also wants to contribute something, yeah, because shouting out, then always the same people shout out, and some people never get a chance to say something. So I like to call upon people to involve a little bit everybody, you know. So, what are the two main reasons why we have to know the qualities in order to be able to give shelter? Common sense. Yes? Yes, first of all, so we have to know exactly, so we know exactly what to strive for, how to qualify ourselves, because in lesson number 1 we were establishing, if we don't come to this point sooner or later where we want to give shelter, our life is superficial, our relationships are superficial, so we don't want to forever lead a superficial life. We want to come to this point where we reach out and give shelter, and we have to know exactly how do I qualify myself for this, right? Yes, this gives a very tangible, practical target, what we have to meditate on, what we have to strive for. We need goals in Krishna consciousness, in life. The materialists have so many goals, right? They have goals for sense gratification, for economic development, for material progress, and. So we also, the mind likes to make plans. And there's only two kinds of plans, either for Krishna's happiness or for our sense gratification. So we have to absorb the mind in making plans and having goals. Otherwise we're just floating around and not going anywhere much in our life. So we should have all long-term goals, short-term goals. So that's why it's very important to know, how do I qualify myself in order to give shelter, to be an instrument in Prabhupada's mission there. And what's the other reason? There's one more reason. Come on. Why do we have to know the qualities in order to give shelter? Hey, have you had a big lunch or something and, and all the blood is going to the stomach or something? Yeah, yes?
To see a good... Like that we can find a good shelter.
Yes, so we take shelter in the right persons. We don't take shelter in unqualified persons, and then we will be surprised or disappointed that we are not really getting the shelter we were hoping for. So that's why we have to know, what is the qualification of a person who can give shelter, right? Okay, so now we have a whole list of different things here. The foremost one, the one which is the foundation to all qualifications, is that we can only give shelter if we have shelter ourselves. Right? We can only give to others what we have. If we are not sheltered, we cannot give shelter to others. Very often this is not so clear, and you know, we might have been around for 20, 25 years and we feel inspired, yes, let me give shelter. But hey, am I sheltered? Do I have such a sheltering relationship? Yes, that we often don't even consider. We think the main and foremost qualification to give shelter is just to be around for 20 or 25 years or something, and then yes, of course I can give shelter. But now we have to be sheltered ourselves. Prabhuji, come here. We've got the materials here, or are they on the table?
No.
For lesson 4? Usually best is if one person who sits in the back there, somebody like Atmaram Prabhu, he has the materials, and then everybody who comes late you quickly give them, you know, because on the table there's so many materials, so people get all mixed up and then they go through the whole thing. Yesterday in the evening the whole table was a big mess there from all the materials being all, you know, mixed up. Yeah, so very often we think just having been around for a certain time, that gives us the ability to give shelter, and we don't realize, no, we have to be sheltered ourselves first. Right? Let us think what can happen if we try and give shelter, but we are not sheltered ourselves. What happens? Lift your hand.
Not able to give proper knowledge and advice and guidance.
We might be able to give advice and guidance, but what's the danger if we are not sheltered ourselves and we try and give shelter? What's the danger? Yeah, we can become proud. Yeah, well, that's there all the time. Yes,
there are more chances that we may fall down in the future if we have not taken the shelter.
Yes, there is chances for falling down, as I was mentioning. All those gurus and sannyasis who couldn't maintain their position, they had that in common. They did not have sheltering relationships. Yes, so very easily we go off the track and we don't even notice. Story like Bharat Maharaj, we mentioned it already. He wanted to give shelter, but he was not sheltered himself. And then he went off the track, and then if we are not sheltered, then we don't have anybody next to us who protects us from that. Right? Yes. We might even have some philosophical deviations or something. Right? And there's nobody there who can tap us on the shoulder. Hey, this was not quite right there. Right? Yes, so there can be all kinds of what are we having there in the back, Atmarapur? Are we too loud or something, is it? Huh?
Just wandering around from the other room.
Okay. Okay. Yes, so very easily we can deviate, or we can overburden ourselves, we can have an imbalanced practice, and very easily we can just lose it. And Krishna, as we were saying, Krishna is sending us tests to uproot the most subtle anarthas, and the tests are getting more heavy, more difficult to really dig deep there with a shovel. So if we are not sheltered, then very easily we will not overcome them. We will take shelter in the wrong sources: false ego, mind, bad habits, non-devotee parents, whatever it may be. You know? Yes. Okay. So that's really the foremost thing. We have to be sheltered, and proportionally to how strongly we are sheltered, we have solid ground under our feet, and then we can be stronger to give shelter to others and to carry a heavier load. Right? So now, a mentor or spiritual caregiver should have the following qualities. He should have a nice understanding of the philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness. So it means he has to be, you know, he has to have a good understanding, which doesn't mean that he has to be a scholar, right? Not required that he's even a good lecturer, or that he knows so many verses, that he's very learned. No, he should simply have a nice understanding of the philosophy and how to apply it, of the practice. That's actually enough. No need to be a big preacher or something. Simply good understanding of the basic philosophy and how to have a balanced practice. The next one is, should have been active within ISKCON for a reasonable length of time. So that could mean anything really. It doesn't say anything. Reasonable length of time. By the way, this list, it's not that I made this up. I got it off His Holiness Janmashtami's book, Taking Care of Krishna's Devotees, and he got it off Radha Swami's books about the council system. So it's coming in the devotee care parampara, so to speak. And I think I added a couple of things, but the basic list is from those personalities. And I dare say there's a good reason why they have said, you know, why they expressed it in such a vague way, reasonable length of time, because you can't put an exact amount of time. You can't say he has to be 5 years, 10 years in Krishna consciousness. No, not possible. It's a very individual thing. So therefore, reasonable length of time. This really indeed could be any length of time, reasonable. Right? So, because it is a very personal and individual matter, yeah.
Reasonable meaning that for them to long enough time for them to mature in Krishna consciousness.
Not enough time?
A reasonable amount of time meaning that it gives them time to mature in their Krishna consciousness.
Yes, it actually gives them enough time to have a nice understanding of the philosophy in Krishna consciousness. First point, yeah, right? So, yeah, as I'm saying, this can be a very individual thing depending on how we apply ourselves to the practice. Some devotee might come up to that point after, you know, a relatively short time, 5 years. Some people might not even be there after 30 years. Therefore, one cannot really put an amount of time on there. Right? Yes. Now, next one is, should be able to give balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance. So, as we know, Krishna consciousness is all about finding the right balance. Right? Process of Krishna consciousness has so many ingredients, and it has to be a healthy balance, a good mixture. Nothing too much, nothing too little. It often reminds me of, you know, some experiment in physics or chemistry even more, where you have all the different ingredients and then the timing and the temperature and the light and this and that, all the different conditions. And to get the right result of the experiment, everything has to be right. Right? If there's something not quite right, well, then the experiment will not work. You get a different result or no result. Right? You remember that from your school days? Doing all these experiments there with this Bunsen flame there, you know, I don't know how you say in English, and so on. So this is really what Krishna consciousness is like. It has to be very balanced, and exactly that's not so easy to find, that right balance. That's exactly why we need the sheltering relationship. So now, in order to be able to give balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance, what does the person have to be? Balanced, yeah. Again, the principle is we can only give what we have ourselves. So if we ourselves are not balanced, then how can we help others to be balanced? Not possible, right? Yes, Pavel?
What does it mean to be balanced, to be balanced?
What does it mean to be balanced? Well, as I mentioned, you know, one has to have Actually, it is connected with being mature and being a little bit off the false ego platform. What makes us often imbalanced if we are too much motivated by ego. It actually comes in the next point. So to be balanced, we have to be mature, and yeah, we have to be really in the mood of humble servant. And we also have to be experienced. Actually, in order to really give balanced advice in all different circumstances, one should have gone through training in almost all fields of practical devotional life. This is actually what Prabhupada wanted. And this is how it was 30 or 35 years ago. I'm sure you remember, Prabhu, when people came to the temple. So they were joining the ashram, and then they were systematically trained in all departments. They were spending some time on Sankirtan, book distribution, then some time in the kitchen. Then as soon as they had Brahman, they were going on the altar, getting trained in deity worship, cooking for the deities, and so this is actually what Prabhupada wanted, that devotees are really expert in all fields of devotional life, and then later we can specialize and just become more expert in one field type thing. I mean, you see this in our spiritual masters. They have all been on book distribution, they have all been on the altar, they have all been in the kitchen, cooking Sunday feasts and breakfast and for the deities, and they've often had some managerial positions, being the temple president, Sankirtan leader, and. So one actually should go through the whole school of all aspects of devotional life as far as possible. This is unfortunately already a little lost these days, you know. Often people, they come and they immediately specialize, they want to do one particular thing because they have some material abilities in that field. But then often you find that devotees don't even know how to do an arati after 20 years of Krishna consciousness, or they don't know how to make a dal or a khichdi or something. I mean, this is not proper training, really. So, but very clear, if we actually are expert in all fields, then we have experience. We know what it's like on the altar. We know what it's like in the kitchen. We know all the different challenges on Sankirtan, or we know the challenges being in a managerial service. And then we can give solid advice. But if we have never served in these capacities, well then, our experience and knowledge is rather theoretical. We don't really know what it's like. I mean, I'm so glad that I myself had a lot of types of experiences, even just being temple president's wife for 10 years. You know all about the challenges of managing. But if we don't have that, then very easily we might be too critical of managers or something. But if you've been yourself in that situation, you know how difficult it is. And then as a preacher, you're more inclined to really support the managers rather than, being a little negative towards them or something, you know. So yeah, if we had all that experience, that gives us the more the footing to really give that balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance. Understand? Yes, brother?
How that is applicable to the person who is working outside. Suppose I am working outside and I am going to do one job only. So is that mean I have to shift all the time my jobs and take the experience of all the fields?
No. We are not talking about jobs. We are talking about devotional life in the temple. So, of course, and we are looking here in the future, we hope that sooner or later we come to this point where most people go through all the ashrams. And brahmachari, brahmacharini life, this is the life for gaining experience in education and spiritual field, student life, right? So of course you might not have had that chance, and there might be so many devotees who have not had that chance, but it's good to understand how important brahmachari life actually is. That we can, when we preach, we can advise young fellows when they have finished their studies, before you get married, spend 1 or 2 years in the brahmachari ashram, get some experience. Yes. Or then your own children, you try, depending on what nature and tendencies they have, but that should be clearly established in devotees' minds, that after material education there should be some phase of spiritual education. In the same way as material education determines our material success, in the same way spiritual education determines our spiritual success. And best to do this before we enter Grihastha life. Because sometimes we hear this opinion, oh, this brahmachari life, no need for this, Kali Yuga, no need, better to just be independent and, you know, then you can do so many more services or something. No, brahmachari life, that's the foundation. I mean, I was in the women's ashram for 4 years in Sydney. I cannot even imagine my life without that. You know? Because then when my marriage fell apart, my husband had Krishna Consciousness, so then it was very natural for me to move on and go into the renounce phase of life immediately. As soon as he left, I asked my Guru Maharaj, can I wear white? Yeah, and first it was white with border, and the border was bigger and brighter, and then gradually it got smaller and more earthen color, and when I was 50 I knew when I'm 50 I'm going to have complete white on. So it was very natural for me, because I had that taste of 4 years just fully dedicating myself to serving and having good sadhana and everything. So it was very natural. But if I had not had that taste, then yeah, I don't know what would have happened then. You know? And even next week we're going to talk about the Vanaprastha ashram. Same thing. If we don't have that solid taste as brahmachari or brahmacharini, then it will not be so natural to really move on to the Vanaprastha phase. Then we easily, you know, rotate in the Grihastha ashram and start all over again with the grandchildren. Then they become the center of our life. You know, and we don't move on to the more renounced phase of life. So brahmachari ashram, brahmacharini training, as far as somehow possible, according to the external situations, it's good to have it. And that's where we get the training in all fields. I mean, even as a Grihastha, you know, depending on how much free time we have, we can, if we are conscious of this, if we are conscious and aware, okay, I have not had that opportunity for this training, so let me somehow try and make it up, that I can serve some time in this, you know, capacity, in this field. Okay, let me go on the altar, learn really in the temple what it means to serve the deities. It's a whole different story than serving in your home altar. I was mentioning it on the Holy Name Retreat. At home, Krishna has to accept our schedule and eat what we want, at what time. But in the temple, we have to accept Krishna's schedule, what he wants to eat at what time. A whole different story, completely different mood and mentality. So, you know, if we understand, okay, I haven't had that chance for training, so let me somehow get it now. You know, or sometimes I meet young couples who don't have children yet, and they're just coming together to Krishna Consciousness. Sometimes they say, okay, let's just go to temple, and he stays in the brahmachari ashram and she stays in the brahmacharini ashram, and we get a little bit of training for 6 or 12 months. And then we get into family life and kids and all that. You know? So there's different ways how we can still get that training, and then we will definitely be more able to give balanced advice. if we have had experience on all different fields of service. Yeah.
In our ISKCON temple, there are different departments.
Yes.
Puja department, Sankirtan department. Then you should learn every day things like also Sankirtan, Puja.
Yes.
But when somebody is in their department, I think that we hold this person.
Yeah, this is a typical Bangladeshi situation. I've been trying for the last 10 years to do something about it, but I haven't gotten anywhere much. What to do? Gradually the leaders will get more experience and trained, and then from generation to generation we apply things more how Prabhupada wanted it or something. But it's definitely not the way it should be. Definitely not. Just for the recording, he was saying, in Bangladesh we have the situation when a person joins, he immediately joins a certain department, and then the department head feels he is my man, he's my person, and he has to stay in that department almost for the rest of his life or something. He's my property. That's why I was saying, yeah, it's a typical Bangladeshi thing. I don't know why this came about, just lack of understanding and training and so on. So every country has their specific situations and things, yeah. Yes. Yes.
We said that we should practice and we should know philosophy before giving shelter.
Yes.
But tendency is like that if one preacher preaches to someone and he introduces someone. Somehow he preaches to on new people.
Yes.
He gives the knowledge and he convinces him to come to Krishna Consciousness.
Yes.
And this person who came to Krishna Consciousness, he preferred to him as a sheltering but he is young, he was young, he was also teaching outside. But he is not capable of giving shelter.
Yes. So the question is, when a person comes to Krishna Consciousness, somebody convinces him to join, and then very easily he just also becomes his man. Well, again, it goes together with the same problem that the person becomes property of the department. You know? That's the same issue. He becomes property of the department, and he becomes almost like the property of the person who preached to him. No, it should not be like that. Should not be like that. Devotees simply have to be trained what qualifications we have to actually give shelter. And this, he becomes my man and he belongs to my department. It is actually, sorry to say, it's extended false ego. We talked about it in Pudrikdam in the false ego seminar. You know, my department. Like for the Grihastha, it's my husband, my wife, my house, and easily for Brahmachari it becomes my department, and my project, and my plans, and my collection, and you know, so it's mature attachment actually. And this comes especially about when people don't go through the training. When one doesn't have that setup, that people should spend some time in each department and become trained. That's where this whole I, me and mine mentality comes from. Right? So I mean, it's very clear, Krishna sends the right person at the right time to bring us further in Krishna consciousness. So the person who initially convinced us to join, he will always be special because he's our Vatma Padashika Guru, we call that, right? So he will always be very special, but it's not that for the next 30 years we have to be under his guidance or something. No. Again, Bangladeshi problem. Okay, let us move on to the next one. Should not have the tendency for taking extreme and controversial positions on issues. He should not be a fundamentalist with Kanishta mentality, fanaticism. So obviously a person who has such tendencies of taking extreme and controversial positions, well, what's lacking for him? What is he not? Balanced, exactly. So he is not balanced. And as I already indicated, this tendency for taking extreme and controversial positions and fanaticism, it is very closely related to false ego. Often people take controversial positions because they want to be different. They want to be somehow noticed. And I think it should be like this and this and this, completely different than everybody else thinks, just to somehow stand out and be recognized or something. That's the underlying thing there. Or I'm right, I know better, nobody else knows as good as I know. Also once I heard a nice definition, I think it comes from Janmashtami. If our enthusiasm is not guided by a higher intelligence than our own, then we become fanatics. It's pretty profound. So if our enthusiasm is not guided by a higher intelligence than our own, we become fanatics. Why? Who can tell me? Or tell us. Why is it like that? If our enthusiasm is not guided by a higher intelligence than our own, why do we then become fanatics?
When they get some be proud and also mind from the wrong way.
Chance to be proud, mind takes us in the wrong way, because what's our enthusiasm mixed with?
Again, our ego, and it's our false ego that we think that we know, but there's no one higher to guide us that no, we are going wrong, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yes, our enthusiasm is most likely there is some mode of passion in there. It's not pure transcendental enthusiasm. In our beginning stage there is some passion in there, some ego. I want to do this, I know, and some ambitiousness, right? While our heart is not pure, our enthusiasm is also not pure. So, and then if we don't have a higher intelligence than our own, because if our enthusiasm is mixed with mode of passion and ego, that will affect the intelligence also. Then the intelligence is also affected by false ego, and then we cannot discriminate, we cannot see clearly. So that's why we need a higher intelligence than our own to guide our enthusiasm. And we all know the practical examples. I mean, almost any good idea you can spoil through fanaticism, right? Book distribution is the go. What? You're not doing book distribution 8 hours a day on the street? Oh, you're not a devotee. Yeah? Yes. Yes, so such a wonderful service and glorious engagement as book distribution can completely be poisoned through false ego. Or Harinam, going on Harinam. Oh, that's it. You have to go 8 hours a day on Harinam. That's the Yuga Dharma Prabhu. Yeah. Yeah, so any good idea, or even deity worship, oh, that's the go, that's the real service, serving there the Lord on the altar, and everybody has to engage in deity worship. Oh. Any great idea can completely be ruined through fanaticism and ego. Yes. So, and of course, such persons who have these tendencies will not be balanced. caregivers and giving guidance, right? Very clear. Yes, Madhaj. Sorry? In yourself, how do we recognize this fanaticism in ourselves or in others? Yeah, as young devotee, not so easy, because also we should not judge others, especially when they are a little senior to us. It's a very dangerous thing, because as Mahatma Prabhu was saying the other day in the Bhagavatam class, you have to be on the same level in order to understand somebody. And therefore, as junior person, we should never ever make that mistake to pass judgments on seniors, because we cannot understand. And for us, see, because there's this saying, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, we think however we see the world, everybody sees it. So let's say a senior person might have genuine inspiration and enthusiasm, but if we would act like him, then it would be fanaticism and ego. And that's why we think he must also be ego-driven and fanatic. Right? Because that's how we would be if we would act like him. So that's why we should never ever pass judgments on seniors. Very dangerous. And it requires maturity. You know, and if we only once we get a bit more mature and purified at heart, then we can see a little bit where juniors are at, where they are standing. Otherwise, how can we be a mentor? How can we give shelter? We have to be able to see where a junior person is standing in order to bring him to the next step up. So as a more senior person, that ability will come in due course as we become mature and experienced, and as we develop a pure desire to serve others and really uplift them, then we can see where people are standing. But as a young devotee, we can't. That's why we have to get the guidance. Sorry? Because yes. Well, it's true, but actually, see, tomorrow we will discuss more how one can establish a system for sheltering relationships, and usually these personalities who are giving shelter, they are authorized by somebody senior. It's not that we just walk around and pick them or something. Yes, but they're actually authorized by a senior person who is kind of, inspiring and facilitating the whole system and overviewing it and. I mean, it's even like the same principle we find in accepting Diksha Gurus. They're also authorized. We can't just take Diksha from anybody, but there is some process of authorization. Yes. So a similar thing is, at least in those yatras where the system is successfully practiced, there is a system of authorization, that they also first serve under the guidance of their counselors and assisting and an assistant counselor, and then gradually they're allowed to accept counselees. Similar even with Guru, when a devotee wants to take sannyas, he accepts a sannyas guru, and that person is overseeing him, he's guiding him how to practice and how to deal with all the difficulties and so on. So yeah. Yes. Because it's true, as a younger devotee, how can we really clearly see whether a person has these qualifications? That's a good point. Yes. Yes. Even Guru, our Diksha Guru, can guide us and say, yes, this is a good person to take advice and guidance and shelter from on a daily basis, because he can see. Yeah? Next one is should be mature and sober. Huh? Mature, yeah, should be mature and sober. Yeah, so it means he should not be whimsical, you know, one day super enthusiastic and then not enthusiastic, up and down. But no, he should be steady and serious and sober, not frivolous and so on, but yeah, serious and mature and sober person, taking the spiritual life very deeply and seriously, like that. Yes. Now we have, the next one is a pretty compact one. Should demonstrate a good standard of sadhana, etiquette, behavior, and commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So why is the good sadhana important? Why should he have good sadhana?
For good consciousness.
Yeah, for good consciousness, it's a source of spiritual strength. Actually, this is what helps him to be balanced, right? To give the balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance. So if he has good sadhana, that gives him a spiritual outlook on things and gives him the spiritual strength. And then he can see what is Maya, what is Krishna's arrangement, and. Yeah, so, and like for example in Chaupadi they even say the sadhana should be as far as possible visible. You should actually be seen at the morning program, in the Bhagavatam class as far as possible. You should be seen chanting your rounds. Right? So as a senior devotee, we always have to practice in such a way that we are above suspicion, that there's no doubt. Oh, is he chanting 16 rounds? I never see him with a bead bag. He's never there. Is he really chanting, or maybe not? So this should not be there. It's actually a way of serving younger devotees that we set a good example. Because what would spiritual practice be if you don't have practical good examples? Right? That inspires that yes, the process works, he is doing it, and what wonderful qualities he develops. So we need to have good examples, otherwise the whole process, it's just only theory really. So good examples really strengthen other devotees' faith. And that's how we serve others, by setting a good example. So if we all, just imagine here in Mayapur, everybody would have that mood, that they feel this responsibility, I have to set a good example. That's how I serve other devotees. Even though there is many devotees at the morning program, for example, but it's not everybody is there. Right? There's quite a lot of devotees who you don't see. And this is in every yatra like this, not only in Mayapur. But if everybody would have that mood, that they feel, yes, this need, this responsibility to set a good example, then, things would be more uplifting in our yatra. Yes. So at least the shelter giver has to be very clear on this, that this in itself is already service to younger devotees, to be exemplary. Yes. Standard of sadhana, etiquette. So, etiquette, basically etiquette behavior, it's like our social conduct, how we are behaving. We often say, you know, your action speaks louder than your words. So, yes, our behavior, we can really see how much we are really, you know, rooted in Krishna consciousness and spiritual practice and so on. Or whether we do one thing and we say another thing. Yeah, and of course etiquette is also very important towards the other gender, that we are very exemplary in our behavior towards the opposite sex. We will get a little later to this, but this is of extreme importance because so much disturbances come about by not following the proper etiquette. So many broken families, divorce, this, that. It usually always starts by not following the etiquettes properly. Too lax in you know, free mixing too much with the other gender. It's actually like that between man and woman in Krishna consciousness. There's not much room for friendship. Not much room. Giving each other gifts and inviting each other for prasadam. Single mothers or single woman is inviting single man for prasadam or something. No, there's no room for this. No, one has to be really serving from a position of really. Well, one has to be authorized as guiding also the other gender in order to be able to reach out to the other gender. One needs some authorization for this. And usually we will get to this later when we talk more about the etiquettes, but we have to distinguish also between mentor or counselor and a person who gives shiksha. Mentor or counselor is more on a daily basis. And we will discuss tomorrow, ideally there should be a weekly meeting between the counselor and his counselees in a group as a program. And then when the counselee is in a hospital or something, then the counselor has to make sure he gets prasadam and this and that, or he might have to meet the counselee's parents or something. So it's a much more involved relationship on the daily basis. So that makes it very clear that one has to be very strict with the etiquettes. That actually, you know, a man should not be a counselor for a woman should not be a counselor for a man, because of this ongoing involvement. Little different, for example, as a traveling preacher, we have the saying, a rolling stone doesn't gather any moss. Always rolling. So nothing much can get stuck there on the rock, you know. So if you're always moving around and you're only visiting once a year, one yatra, you know, all right, you know, in such a situation, you can sometimes also give guidance to a person from the other gender, because you know, tomorrow I'm gone. There's no ongoing thing, you know, and especially if we are always alert in fear, how we discussed yesterday, then we are also very mindful that we keep our association with the other gender to the bare minimum. That there's no room for even the most subtle kind of sense enjoyment sneaking in there. that we are enjoying somehow the attention and the company of the other gender, that there's no room for this, absolutely no room. If that is there, the whole thing is contaminated. Yeah, so as a traveling preacher or more shiksha person, you know, there's a little bit of freedom there for this, to work with the other gender. But as a mentor, mentorship is more on a regular, daily, ongoing basis, and there's just too much regular involvement. And therefore there's no room for this. I mean, unfortunately, we've had the experience a few times in different parts of the world where a mentor walks out, you know, with one of his mentees, and, you know, he or she left their wife or husband or something. And it often starts by going to the mentor with some marriage problem. And then, you know, the mentor gets so involved in giving guidance and care and not helping the poor person, and then they end up together, and the marriage is broken. Yeah, we've had all these kind of stories, so no need to repeat them. Yeah, so that's why very important to be very strict in the etiquette. Yeah. Not so easy, and you know, in the Western world to follow this, because this free mixing is, we are surrounded by this free mixing, and then it seems so artificial or something, or unnatural to be strict in this. I mean, I know yatras where even brahmachari embraces a woman, hugs. Yes, I've seen it. I was there. In the name of preaching. There's no room for this. This is actually subtle sex life. Let's be clear here. Obviously there's some unfulfilled needs here, you know, and we try to satisfy them in the name of preaching or something. No room. Yeah. It's all going on. There's so much confusion about these things. I remember once in one yatra, I won't say where, I was speaking quite strongly about this because I knew it was going on. And then one person in the audience asked, "But Mataji, at work, you know, everybody's hugging and kissing each other on the cheeks and so on. So, and I'm working there in the office, how can I not take part in this?" Yeah, so such questions come up. But now we, as a devotee, we you know, where are the borders? We can say then, oh well, they're eating chicken soup there, so how can I not take part in this? So we have to set our borders, and we have to make it clear. Well, sorry, I'm living a different lifestyle. I mean, just talking about, I remember when I was visiting one yatra, and one devotee was so happy to see me in a male body, and he was coming up embracing me, and I was all, okay. I was standing there like a rod, you know, and he got the point, you know, that I was not really so eager for this. Yeah, so I mean, we have to set our borders and maintain our standards and be exemplary, and can't go along with such things just for the sake of preaching or something. And commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So, what does that mean? They can elaborate in their own words what that means. Yes, Prabhu. Have service in Prabhupada's mission? Yes. Huh?
First to have the service and then to do the service.
You have the service and then to do the service, yes. And what else? But you might have service and do it, but you might still not have that real deep internal commitment. It's actually an internal thing, not just external. Right? So actually what it means is really that it's also a very relevant topic at the moment, that we actually deeply understand Prabhupada's position as a founder Acharya. That's actually what it means. That we really understand, each and every devotee in ISKCON has to deeply understand Prabhupada's mood, Prabhupada's visions, Prabhupada's instructions. Actually, Prabhupada's mood has to become our mood. We have to imbibe Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada's mood has to really become our very own mood. We have to carry it, and in that way we pass it on to the next generation, really. Yeah, so there has to be some deep integrity towards Prabhupada's mission and Prabhupada's mood. That we don't speculate and we come up with our own ideas, but that we are really a Prabhupada man, a Prabhupada Anuga. And we really stick to ISKCON and Prabhupada. We are not attracted to some other Radha Kund Babas there or something, but we really have this deep commitment and integrity to following Prabhupada. So, and for that we have to understand Prabhupada and his mood. Right? Otherwise, how can we have that integrity? It's also connected with a subtle form of truthfulness. Basically, chastity towards Prabhupada. Right? We use that word chastity not only towards husband or wife or something, but actually towards Guru also. That we understand here, Prabhupada, he is the one who saved us. We stick to giving our life to his mission and not, okay, he can save us, but then we start our own mission, not mission, but our own branch there, our own society where we are and the Acharya or something. But that we really stick to Prabhupada and we are truthful to Prabhupada. Yeah? And also it means we walk our talk. We don't say one thing and do another thing, but there's this personal integrity too. That we don't use the philosophy just to get our goals met and prove our separate visions or something, right? Twisting things around or something. But that we really, we walk our talk and we remain faithful to Prabhupada. Faithfulness. Any questions about that? Yes, brother.
How about parents? It's like your parents are not in Krishna consciousness.
Parents are not in Krishna consciousness and the mother wants to hug. Yeah, with parents, depending on how much they can understand Krishna consciousness, we have to be a little compromising. Because for a mother who is not familiar with Krishna consciousness, she cannot understand how the grown-up son shouldn't be hugged anymore, and she will not understand. I even remember once I was visiting with my father, I was visiting Bangladesh. This is, my God, 15 years ago. My father left already his body 10 years ago or something. So I visited Bangladesh with him 2 times actually. We traveled all around Bangladesh. And once he was there and he had to leave earlier. He was flying off earlier. And in the temple courtyard we were saying goodbye to each other. And of course I knew it was not the culture that I would give my father a hug, but I didn't want to upset my father, so I gave him a hug, or he gave me a hug. But I saw that the brahmacharis who saw it, their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. You know, they were so shocked. They probably had never seen in their whole life, you know, a man hugging a woman, no matter whether it's a father or whatever. So for them it was such a surprise. But anyway, what could I do? I did that not to upset my father or something. But yeah, that's the culture that once I'm not quite sure what age, probably, definitely. For the boys it's pretty young when they go to Gurukul already. I mean, ideally a boy shouldn't be so much under the care of the mother, because she will spoil him, you know, and he will become more some, how do you say in English, some mummy's boy there, and yeah, he will be all pampered and spoiled. So that's why the boys, actually 6-7 years old, they should be separated from the mother and they should go to Gurukul. And the only bona fide touch, especially from outside family, but even when the boys are a little older or when the girls are older towards the father, is actually touch on the head, giving blessings. Right? I learned that in Bangladesh too. That's the only authorized touch. You know, but all this fondling and all this kind of stuff there. Alright, when the kids are small, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old or something, but then also they don't like this anymore. They feel almost used, you know, in a subtle way, emotionally abused or something. Usually they don't like this. So, yeah, these are all the cultural things which, of course, the materialists cannot relate to. So, to some extent, with family members, we might have to make a little compromise. But then also it depends how often you see them. If you see them constantly, then we might have to somehow try and explain to them, depending how open they are. I mean, I've seen it in Bangladesh when the brahmacharis visit their parents, that they're touching the feet, you know, nothing else. There's no hugging and all this going on. And one might think it's very impersonal or something, but no, it's very sweet, very affectionate, very secret. You know, the boy's touching the feet and the mother's rubbing the head in affection, like in Krishna book it's described. So it's still going on there. Very nice. Anything else? I mean, one good way to explain it is that we are simply having other ways to express our affection. Also, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj wrote this book, Glimpses of Indian Village Life or something, right? And there in the back, I remember there's some interview, and there one Indian person says, yes, you Westerners, you make a show of hugging and kissing in the streets and all that, but then you get divorced. But we don't make a show, but our relationships are actually much deeper, and we stay together. We don't make a whole show and then get divorced. Yeah, so I mean, we can explain to people that we just have a different standard and different ways of expressing our affection towards each other, and that we are not so body related always, but it's more from soul to soul. Yes, we hug within the soul, within the heart, like Krishna and the gopis. Yes. Shall we continue a little bit more, or you want a break? We'll do a couple more, and then we'll take a break. Next one is also a very important one. Should be willing to extend him or herself to help others and have the spirit of sacrifice. Should be compassionate and have a genuine and selfless concern for the welfare of devotees. This is almost one of the most important ones, actually. Because if this is not there, well, then simply this spirit of truly caring is not there. Actually, I remember many years ago, when was that, beginning of 90s or something, when His Holiness Janmashtami, he heard about the Chaupadi system there, and we were at that time in Riga, in Latvia, and we were establishing a temple there while I was married, and Janmashtami was our GBC. So I think he made some interviews with Radhanaswami to describe this whole system of giving care and sheltering relationships. And they made some videos. I remember the old-fashioned chunky video cassettes, you know, completely outdated technology. So, and then Janmashtami was distributing these videos in all of his GBZ zone, and ordered to all the temple presidents, these videos should be watched in place of Bhagavatam class, and the system should be applied immediately. And this was 92, 93 or something, so Janmashtami immediately had that, wow, that's it, that's what we need. Just by the way, this whole counselor system, mentoring system, it's actually not coming from India. And it's not even coming from Radhanaswami. The person who established this was Kirtanananda, who is not around anymore. But where did he get it? He got it from some Christian groups in America. Yes. I'm not sure whether it was the Mormons or who it was, I don't know. But some Christian sect, maybe it was the Mormons, there he found how they were taking care of their congregational members. And he took that up and started it in Chaupadi temple. And then later Radhanaswami developed it further. So, just interesting to understand, because sometimes people say, oh, this only works in India or something. No, it doesn't even come from India. It comes from a Christian group in America. And it is actually the basic foundation of a meaningful relationship in any spiritual culture. In any culture where God consciousness is the center, this is the most natural principle. So it's really nothing artificial. Yes.
Temples flourishing.
Which temples? Those who he gave the tapes, so yeah, I didn't finish. So I remember at that time I was married and my husband was saying, oh, what is this now? Some Indian thing, do we really need this? So this was the reaction of many leaders, oh no, some new system now and so on. So, but what I remember from watching some of these videos, and that's why I was wanting to share this, I remember distinctly Radhanaswami saying in one interview there, in one talk, the only really thing that is required is that burning desire to help and serve devotees. And that really stuck so much in my mind. I mean, I was a young devotee then, I was just 3-4 years around, But I distinctly remember I was thinking, desire to serve and help the devotees, actually I do have that. So maybe there is a chance for me to actually give care and shelter to others eventually. Yes. So he was really emphasizing that. If that burning desire genuinely care for devotees, then actually most other things come. If the desire is pure enough, then you will want to set a good standard or an example in sadhana, in etiquette, and. If that desire is there to really care for devotees and do something to uplift them and be truly concerned about devotees' welfare. So then so many other qualifications will develop from that, because that burning desire is there. Yeah? But to come back to your question, yeah, I mean, the only yatra I have observed where it is really flourishing is Ukraine. Yes. And Janmashtami is GBC there, co-GBC with Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, and he has been giving so much time and energy to this. You wouldn't believe it. Tirelessly, he's preaching this, facilitating this. You know, he's got a whole system there that the counselors give written reports about, you know, their counselees who are his disciples, and then 2 times a year they have a counselor retreat where all the counselors and assistant counselors, they come for a long weekend to Kiev from the whole country. It's about 200-300 people or something, right? Even more. Yes, and they come together for 2-3 days, and they have all kinds of seminars and presentations on all different aspects of giving care and communication and this and that and so many things and sharing and just to put emphasis on this, just to highlight it. Like we have Sankirtan festivals, just to make highlight the Sankirtan mission and so. Yeah, and he's been doing this for 15 years or something. Yeah, and now you can really see the fruits. Yeah, the marriages are pretty stable, and the counselors put husband and wife together. So often when I ask the devotees, so how did you meet each other? Usually the answer is, well, our counselor put us together. And those marriages who are arranged like that, with thoughtful matching and they're usually more steady. And not only that, then the counselor is an ongoing part of that marriage. And then when there's any kind of challenges coming up, it's very natural that they turn towards the counselor, because there's also some gratitude there that this person put us together. And the counselor is an ongoing part of their lives and takes some interest. Yeah, it is very nice. Yes. So, I mean, Ukraine, the Ukrainian Bhakti Sangam festival speaks for itself. There's about 8,000 devotees coming. Yes, for 5 days, 5 seminar days. There's 6 seminars parallel, all different venues. There's about 25 preachers and sannyasis and giving lectures, and then wonderful evening kirtans. I mean, it's really out of this world, very unique. And most devotees are from Ukraine, a few from Russia, a few from the Baltics, but the main chunk of devotees is from Ukraine. Because 2 weeks later they have a similar festival in Russia, where all the Russian devotees go. Yeah, so I mean, it is really flourishing. But it requires a lot of ongoing input and inspiration, and it actually really flourishes only if it is really encouraged from the top. I mean, even Chapati too. Janmashtami started it several times, and then it dwindled and fell apart, and he started it again, putting so much emphasis on it and preaching about the importance of it, and so because it is rather foreign for us because of our materialistic conditioning, so it needs ongoing inspiration and yeah, some little push there. But it truly makes a difference. Yes. Already catching a little bit the tomorrow's topics of practical application, but since the question came up. Yeah, so let me add a few little things to this point. Should be willing to extend him or herself to help others and have the spirit of sacrifice. So spirit of sacrifice has to also be balanced with spiritual intelligence. You know, sacrificing oneself doesn't mean that, first of all, we have to know our limits. We can't bite off more than we can chew type thing. So we might have to set our limits a little bit. And also it doesn't mean that we blindly sacrifice our energy, even though the person might not actually really be so serious in applying what we're trying to give. Right? Sometimes we might have that situation that a person comes again and again with the same questions, and all right, you sit down, you talk, you discuss, but then again the person comes and again and again. So then, you know, sacrificing oneself doesn't mean, oh, I just continue, I have to sacrifice myself. No, we have to apply some spiritual intelligence and then sooner or later say, so I think we've talked enough now, so let's get into action here, let's do some service together or something. Or just say, listen, we've talked about it, so you have to decide now and you have to apply it. And I mean, a similar thing we also have, for example, in preaching and book distribution. Right? We can sometimes it happens to a book distributor, he gets stuck there talking for a whole hour to the person, and the person has actually no serious intention to take a book. He just wants to enjoy that attention and engage in some debating there. And then after 1 or 2 hours the person says, all right, thank you very much, nice to meet you, see you later. And you wasted so much time, right? Or same thing on the Sunday program, if you talk to somebody there, you can also, if you cannot discriminate, you can waste a lot of time. Maybe the person is actually not that serious and just wants your attention, some emotional attention there or something. And this happens very easily, that we wrongly sacrifice our energy when we actually try to fulfill some own personal emotional need, or we have some very subtle enjoyment there, trying to show how much we know, or we need to feel needed, right? Maybe we know this from ourselves or from others, or some people, they need to feel needed. They need to have this feeling that this person cannot live without me. And oh, I'm there. Huh? Yeah, it's some subtle symbiosis there of fulfilling each other's needs on some subtle level there. And this is not meant with selflessly sacrificing. So one has to be a little philosophical. One cannot be too emotional and sentimental, and one has to set some limits. Okay, that much time I sacrifice for this person, but if the person is not really serious, then let me better spend my time with somebody else who is more serious. Huh? So we have to discriminate a little bit. And it should be selfless. Genuine and selfless. If it's genuine and selfless, then we will not fall into this trap of some emotional symbiosis of fulfilling each other's needs there, because then it's not selfless. Then we are fulfilling in a subtle way our own need. We are needy. Huh? Yes. Everybody understands this? Yeah, it's all pretty subtle. Yes. Any question about this? So the emphasis is really this spirit of sacrifice, and genuine and selfless concern, then it is pure, if it is selfless. But if we have needs there and some subtle enjoyment, then it's not pure anymore, and then we will not really be able to actually give proper shelter there. Okay, let us go to the next one, which is, should be a good listener, able to listen to people he, she is trying to serve, and be a good communicator. So why is this important? Yes, Pooh?
Because we like to give advice.
Because we like to give advice. Well, yes, the common problem is that we are always very quick in giving advice, but we are not hearing the person first. Yes, how he feels, what is the whole situation from his side, and how is the person feeling if we don't hear him? Huh? How is he feeling if we don't listen to him, we don't hear him?
He feels neglected.
Yeah, he feels neglected, he feels not understood. Actually, maybe, do we have two people who would like to prepare a little role play for tomorrow? Good listening and bad listening. Or we start with bad listening and good listening, because this is a very common thing. Yeah, you know, you imagine temple president sits in his office, some new bhakta knocks on the door, can I talk to you? And then he's on the computer, yeah, what do you want? Yeah, okay, yeah, go on. Oh, sorry, I have to answer that call. You know, just wait a minute. And then yes, just talk, and so on, you know. I mean, these things are going on, you know, we might be laughing about it.
You will go somewhere to Calcutta for lunch, and all the time his phones.
Yes, but especially when somebody... Don't cry now, you can cry later. So you imagine, you know, a devotee takes the courage to go and reveal his heart and really share something. Often people don't even have that courage so easily. They feel too shy, or I cannot disturb the person with my problems, and what will he think about me, and. But then finally we scratch together enough courage and to approach the person, and then we are treated like this, and he doesn't even listen. He's got other things, a computer, mobile, this, that, or he's not open to hear us. He just gives the advice. Oh, well, of course, you haven't been to Mongolati. What do you expect? And you know, yeah, I mean, I'm already doing the role play here myself. Yeah, but these things are going on. These things are going on. So good listening means we really make the person... Oh, what is completely annoying too, when you speak with a person and the person constantly looks at his watch, you know? You just try to share something and every 2 minutes he looks at the watch. But you also feel, oh, okay, he doesn't have any time for me, so he's not really interested, so okay. But I'll cut it short and just go, you know? Yeah, but these things are... No, I mean, I've been plenty of times also in this situation. I mean, usually my motto is always that I make appointments and I really try and give the person the feeling that I've got all the time in the world for this person. Or sometimes I say, okay, now we have 1 hour. Usually I schedule 1 hour. And sometimes I let the person know, so now we have 1 hour. And if this is not enough, we can meet another time. So and then there has to be eye contact, no phones, nothing, eye contact. We really have to hear the person and you know, and even this empathic listening is good to be a little educated in this, that we repeat what he says. So if I understand you correctly, this is how you feel, right? And you mean this and this and this, just repeating. I mean, I once did this exercise with devotees, that one person presents something and the other person, some problem, some personal thing, and the other person simply should repeat what he says. People repeat completely different things. It's amazing, it's shocking. People are not repeating what the person says because they're not hearing, they're not listening. They say something completely different. Yeah, I mean, I was so shocked. How can it be? You know, they were telling their own thing there. And we had given Willie the exercise to say, you start the sentence, if I understand you correctly, you mean this and this and this. You said this and this and this. But people repeat something else. They don't repeat what the person says. This is how inattentively we are listening. This is how we are filtering. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And just reflect how bad listeners we are. We are all keen to speak and about ourselves, how we said yesterday, we like to talk about ourselves, and we just always quick with advice, and we think we know the situation already, and just have the formulas, the solutions, but we cannot really deeply hear and understand a person. We actually have to put ourselves in his shoes, how we say. We have to really imagine how this person feels in that particular situation. What it feels like. So this is a whole art. I mean, these are material tools actually. Even the non-devotees giving courses in these things. So and it's no harm for us devotees to actually have a few tools there. So it's good to improve our listening skills by going through such courses. We shouldn't think, oh, it's all Maya and Kami stuff or something. It's like when you drive a Sankirtan van, you have to know how to change the oil and how to change the tire. And if you don't know, oh, well, go and do a course or something where you learn it, you know. Yeah, so same thing. These tools are valuable. And this is what they do, for example, in this counselor retreat. They have all kinds of presentations and exercises and games and in all different aspects and fields of being a good caregiver, and this listening is one of them. And yeah, just to educate people a bit. Yeah? Yes. Yeah, so good listener, extremely important. And another thing which I really want to emphasize, this is also very often neglected and not understood, that we should never pass a judgment on a situation or on a person without hearing all different sides to the situation. Or at least hearing that particular person, right? So there might be some rumors going around about one devotee, what he's doing or what he didn't do or what he should have done or whatever. So then we as a senior, we can't just only hear what other people say and pass a judgment on that person. No, we have to hear that person's side. this can be so discouraging for a younger devotee if seniors do this. I've been a few times myself in this situation. Yes, where people passing judgments on what I'm doing, what I'm preaching, and but they have never ever taken the time to actually have a look or talk to me, you know. And this is very discouraging when this comes from a senior person. Yeah, very discouraging. Then you really feel, oh, well, people are actually not caring and they're just gossiping behind your back or something and passing judgments. I mean, even in a marriage situation, let's say that the wife comes, this and this and this problem. If we want to get a clear situation, we should actually also talk to the husband. What's his side to the story? Sometimes we can be up for a surprise, right? Because then from his side the thing might look completely differently, the situation, or vice versa. Because let's keep in mind, there is no such thing as the objective experience, the objective hearing. Everybody hears and experiences something different according to their own consciousness, their own mindset. We hear something differently, even here in this room. For every single person here, they get a different experience. They hear things differently. Yes, so, you know, in a conflict situation, each and every person's vision and understanding of the situation is completely different. So we can't judge a situation just by hearing one person. Even if that one person is our friend and we think, yeah, he or she knows. No, we have to go and actually really hear everybody with that same openness, trying to understand what this person goes through. You know, and I've been often in situations when you just hear one side, you think, oh yeah, this is how it was. But then when you hear from the other person, okay, wow, so now I get a clear picture of the situation and it doesn't look like it's all that person's fault. No, from his side, you know, that he's also got something to say about the situation. Yes. So this is a really important thing. And I've often also done myself the mistake that you hear something and then immediately you make a judgment, and then very easily we commit offense and we misjudge the situation. We jump to some conclusions very easily if we are not taking the time to hear the other side of the story. So very important as a caregiver, we have to be very careful with this and really, and it takes time and energy. That's why one has to have this selfless mood of sacrificing oneself. I mean, if you really want to take it seriously, you almost have to be available at any time for people. Yes. At least available to make an appointment. Huh? We might not be able to speak to the person right there, right there and then, but at least we have to say, oh, I'm sorry, now I don't have the time, but what about tomorrow, or what about tonight, or this or that. And then if that person, for that person it's urgent, we have to make the time urgently. Because you don't know. I've heard stories that there were situations, you know, where somebody jumped off the roof or something, and before he asked or she asked, oh, can I speak with you? And then there was no time or something. So just imagine how you would feel as a mentor or something, if just because, you know, you didn't give your time, the person jumps off the cliff or something. So, yeah, one has to take this seriously, you know. So that's why without really this willingness of sacrificing oneself, one cannot really play that role. It's not a thing of 9 to 5 and sorry, you know, now I'm off and weekend I don't have time and whatever. No, one has to really put one's heart into it And this comes if we have this genuine and selfless concern for the welfare of other devotees. And it's natural progression. Once we value what Krishna consciousness is doing for our own life, we want to do everything to give that to others also and really help them to make progress and it's very natural actually. Yes, once we really value what we have, we want to reach out and give it to others. Yes. Any addition to this point of being a good listener? And not passing judgments without hearing everybody involved? Yes, brother.
You said we should listen to both the parties, but then both the parties are at mistake. So if someone comes to me and asks me what's the problem, I'll say it was not my problem, it was his or her problem. So I will show my part as I'm a good part. It was not my mistake. So how to, in that case, how you are going to judge it if this person is?
Well, see, that's exactly, so the question is, whenever we go to somebody, we usually have that attitude, it's not me who is making the mistakes, who has the problem, it's the other people, right? That's what you mean. So yeah, that's exactly the effect of the false ego. That we're always pointing the finger at others and we think it's all their fault. And that's exactly why we need so badly a counselor or mentor who can point out to us based on this trusting friendship that, hey, it's not only the others. We are ourselves contributing and. So that's exactly why we need a mentor, because if we don't have that, then we just take shelter of our false ego. We think it's everybody else's fault, but not mine. But I explain always people, the Vaishnav mood is, what am I doing wrong that I'm ending up in this situation? And what is Krishna trying to teach me? Even if I'm externally in the right, still there's a reason that Krishna is arranging this for me. Obviously he wants me to learn something. So and then help the person to see what Krishna is trying to teach us, And of course also a good mentor will not just always give the ready solution. Actually a good mentor is simply helping the person to see himself and understand himself. But if we're just only immediately giving the solution, it's not so a good way of mentoring. And also, we basically, as a mentor, we want to empower people to solve their own problems, actually. We don't want to be the Mr. Fix-It who just gives the perfect solution for every calamity in life or something. Then we go crazy, just solving people's problems or something. No, we can illustrate the principles. This is how Krishna is doing it. He's saying to us, so if you do it like this, you will get this result. If you do it like that, you will get that result. So you choose. And if you sit in some porridge there, oh, well, you cooked it for yourself, so now you have to somehow eat it. And again, good to tell people, well, whatever situation we are, we have to take responsibility for it. It's a result of our desires and our activities. Yes, this blaming is just, it's just really a function of the false ego. So, but if people come and blame the others, I've been often in situations that people come and they think this and this and this is the actual problem and question. But then it also requires a little bit of intuition as a mentor. Then, you ask, about the whole situation, this, that, and just to more clearly understand the whole situation. And then you actually notice that a completely different issue is the real issue, the real problem. And I've had it so many times that people say, oh gee, I came with that question, but now I realize, you know, the problem is completely somewhere else. So that's kind of the art as a counselor, that we really, you know, we have to dig deeper, because often people see just the shallow situation, the shallow aspects of a situation, but then as you dig deeper through questions, you know, then you might come to the root of the problem, which looks very differently than what's growing there on the surface. Yeah, so it's a whole art, actually. Yes.
I want to share some experience.
Okay.
This problem actually is a problem. You know, Shastri Prabhu. Shastri Prabhu.
Sahasajit Prabhu.
From Ukraine.
Yes.
He was in Bangladesh.
Yes.
And I was also traveling with them.
Yes.
And I always noticed this thing about their relationship with Vishwambara and himself. And Vishwambara always asking him question. What is this, what is that, what is this? But I never saw that Prabhuji was tired or something to say like that. Yeah, why you are asking something? But he's always eager to hear from him and also giving the right answer also. And it's actually, I noticed that actually their relationship actually built and also very strongly. Also, Vishwambara also depends on his father, his words also. And another thing is...
yeah, well, let's clarify. Sahasajit Prabhu, Vishwambara is his son, teenage son.
He was so small.
So, yeah, but it's the same principle, that whether it's also a sheltering relationship, father-son. So, yeah, we have to hear people out. We can't get annoyed about their questions. We have to explain and yes. And what else did you want to say?
And one other negative, that was if somebody don't properly hear, then what will happen? Once in Swamivar, it was Chandramali Swamivar was giving class, and Prabhuji was translating. But maybe he was not hearing properly from Maharaj. He is translating another thing. And Maharaj immediately noticed that. Yeah, because audience actually, some audience can understand the English also. And somebody actually, maybe he watched this thing. And he said, what you are translating? Jagadguru immediately ran and come and sit there.
He translates. Yes. Yes. All right. Anything else about the? Yes.
Mataji, what about when the talk is going about a senior? Then how do we clarify? Like if it also somehow affects our spiritual practice, and there's some rumor or some talks going on, then what do we do? Because we cannot judge. We cannot actually, as a new and a junior devotee, we cannot go and ask that particular senior person about it.
Yes. Okay, so what to do if there is some, some discrepancy in a senior devotee? We cannot judge, we cannot approach him. So the proper Vaishnava etiquette is that we go to his authority, we go to his counselor. Yes, that's the proper etiquette. In vision we would say, we are dobbing him in and complain about him behind his back or something. No, but from spiritual point of view, that's the right etiquette. If we notice something about our counselor, for example, our duty is to report it to his counselor or his authority, and then leave it up to them to judge whether this has to be addressed or not. Maybe it's just our imagination, or maybe it's not so serious that it needs to be addressed, but that is our duty. We have to report. If we find it alarming and disturbing, we have to report it. And then we've done our duty and we simply leave it up to them. We don't carry on and, but he's doing this and that. No, we simply report and that's it. Then we've done our duty and we don't have to worry about it anymore. But if we don't report it, then it is a neglect from our side, because ultimately it is also for the benefit of that senior person. Because if his counselor then addresses it and takes care of it, it is for his benefit, it's for his good. Right? That's the whole system of protection and care, that everybody has a counselor, even our counselor has to be sheltered, he has to have a counselor. So, and that is his protection. Yes. Because it can also be that from a senior position, not so easy to detect things. And it's sometimes easier to detect it from a junior position. So we might, as a junior person, we might see things which a senior person actually cannot so easily see, because it's happening on a subtle level towards the juniors, and he might not be aware of it, you know? Yeah, so it's important that we report. Anything else? Yes, Manoj.
Two seniors are criticizing each other. You're in the middle and they don't have anyone.
Say it again. When seniors criticize each other.
You're in the middle and they're criticizing each other, and you're hearing it from both sides because you're having to take shelter of both of them for a particular service.
Yes.
Neither of them are actually taking shelter of anyone else.
Yes, good that you're bringing this up. I will take a note of this here. Actually, it is the etiquette that a senior should never reveal his difficulties to a junior. It's very important. Why? Who can say? Yes, his mind is disturbed. You're already voicing it, you know? Right? Yes. It diminishes the faith of the younger devotee. Then he thinks, oh, well, if my senior has all these problems, my God, what chance is there for me? And how can I trust this person? He's got all these problems. And so this is a really important part of etiquette. And again, so often it is not followed. Because in many ways, it is easier to reveal your mind and your difficulties to somebody junior than going to somebody senior who will give you the remedy there, and maybe, get a bit on your case or something. And it's even easier to reveal your mind and your difficulties to somebody who's got the same difficulties. And then the person says, yeah, don't worry, I've got the same thing, don't worry. And then you just support each other in your difficulties there. Yes. So this is a really important thing, my God, yes. As a senior person, we should never reveal our difficulties to a junior person. Sometimes, especially for women, because women digest by talking about it. So then it's like, pouring a whole bucket of garbage over somebody's head, a younger devotee. So then the senior person feels so relieved, oh, thank God, now I talked about it and I feel all free and easy. But the younger devotee, oh, you got the whole thing there. Yes, Yes, I mean this is a real no-no. And another thing of etiquette is, if there is some disagreement on senior level trials, we should never ever take sides. No, we should not get involved, we should not take sides, we should not pass judgments, because we cannot deeply understand what's going on senior level. Guaranteed we will commit apparat and misjudge and. Yes. I will put this here just so I address it.
So coming from the Australian natural speaking in the universal culture of Australia, the egalitarian to see each other as equal. So it's very common that happens in that teaching actually.
Yeah, very common.
Yeah.
See also, because sometimes people have this kind of new agey attitude that they treat younger devotees as equals. Right?
They're revealing their minds.
Yeah. Thinking that if I'm going down on their level and I pretend I'm an equal, then they will reveal their mind more easily to me. But this also, it mixes everything up. Now, see also, because if we do that, then very easily the junior person becomes over-familiar.
Yes, particularly when they can understand the hierarchy, they don't actually understand the culture in the first place.
Yeah, see, because, that's the whole thing, because in materialistic culture, to be superior, the superior easily exploits the inferiors for his sense gratification. Right? Yes, because the goal in materialistic culture is sense gratification, so nobody wants to be on the bottom, everybody wants to be on the top. Being higher means more fun, more sense gratification. You step on the lower people's heads to get up there. So, and because of that kind of understanding and conditioning, we feel, oh, we don't want to take that higher position, so we all chummy mates there on the junior level or something. But this is all. No, there has to be respect. And there has to be affectionate dealings, and not using each other to enjoy there, but no, be humble servant and uplift and show genuine concern. And then no need to have this kind of chumminess there on the lower level. This is the wrong understanding, and it mixes things up. And that's how it comes about, that then the senior person reveals their mind to the junior person and takes shelter there. But no, shouldn't be. Shouldn't be, because the junior person cannot deal with these things. And they cannot give advice. And they should not give advice to a senior person. That's another thing. We should not put a junior person in the situation, at least where we give personal advice. All right, Prabhupada was also sometimes asking advice of his disciples, so-called advice. So how would you do in this situation? But then Prabhupada decided how he wanted to do. Sometimes he would accept the suggestion, sometimes he wouldn't. So as a senior person we can do that. But to accept personal advice, this is a very dangerous mentality for a junior person. Then he will run around and think that he has to advise the senior people or something and see what they should correct and adjust or something. And this is really inappropriate, completely inappropriate. Even if there are so many mistakes, it's not a junior person's position to correct. No, or to point out. He should go to that person's mentor or authority and report, and that person corrects. But there's so much misunderstanding. Sometimes people think it's kind of cool to accept some personal correction from a junior person or something, but we damage that person's attitudes.
point to putting very people in big positions, like temple commander or straight away.
Yes. We can easily poison people's spiritual life because it feeds their egos when we give them prematurely some position based on some material abilities or something, and then immediately we empower them, and it can ruin their whole spiritual life because then the pride comes, oh look at me, I'm already heading up this department and so on. But just this, this, if we allow people, young devotees, to correct seniors, this will bring about a fault-finding mentality. It will bring about a fault-finding mentality, right? If a junior person thinks, if we as a senior encourage him to correct us, then he thinks, oh, I can actually correct and find the mistakes in others and point them out. But as a junior, we cannot see, we cannot judge what is happening on the senior level, and it's not our position. It's not our position. Even if there's so many shortcomings, it's not our position to correct. So, alright, a senior person might ask for feedback or something, like we had in the Holy Name Retreat, feedback form. Well, that's a different thing. So then, the person can give feedback, and well, as a senior, you can decide what you want to accept and what you want to dismiss. Different thing. It's more on a distance, but giving that personal instruction or correction to a senior person is really off. And we damage that junior devotee's life. Yes. The senior person might be humble and not say anything or something, but we damage the junior person's spiritual practice by accepting this tendency of finding faults and pointing them out.
So when we don't understand what is happening
on a senior level, well, it's also not so much our business. So it depends a bit on the situation. If we are meant to understand and know, then people will inform us. But a lot of it is none of our business. But through internet, Facebook, all these medias, there's so much talk, so much gossiping going on, so much people discussing what's happening on the senior level, taking sides, judging the GBCs and this and that. Oh my God, this is all complete pujalpa. Yes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his book Bhakti Aloka, he has all these different categories of pujalpa in there, And so this fault-finding, judging, this, is all part of pujalpa. That's why Prabhupada said, this pujalpa, it will destroy our movement. Prabhupada once said this. All this judging, fault-finding, and gossiping about others. All Prabhupada was heavily talking about it. There was once this situation where how did you call that technology before the fax machine? No. Telex. No, not telex. Anyway, the previous technology to fax. No, it was something else. Or maybe it was a telex machine or something. So in any case, this technology came out, and the devotees proudly showed to Prabhupada, oh look, our temple has this machine, and now that we can communicate all over the world immediately, and maybe every temple should have such a machine. And then Prabhupada said, no, then you will gossip all over the world. Yes. And in another book, it's in Kumba Prabhu's book about Prabhupada in Australia, there's a few stories in there where Prabhupada chastises Upananda Prabhu for talking about this devotee, that devotee, and Prabhupada says this gossip will destroy our movement. Yes, because it is so contaminating people's minds, and all this fake news and all this stuff. It's just so detrimental to spiritual practice. It ruins people's faith. Yes. Yes.
In a situation when we feel insecure, when something is wrong on this higher level, we feel insecure because we don't know what to do.
Well, then we simply take shelter of Krishna in the process of devotional service and Prabhupada and our Guru Maharaj, and we just block our ears and practice nicely and pray to Krishna and Prabhupada to adjust things, whatever it may be.
With whatever resources we have.
Huh?
With whatever resources we have at hand.
Well, not resources in our hand. We simply take shelter of spiritual practice, of chanting, and trusting that Krishna knows how to solve the situation. If we know or don't know, it's not going to make any difference. And it's not up to us, it's not in our circle of influence to adjust the situation. So no need for us to get involved, no need to stick our nose in it. We should just get the Bhagavatam out and read and chant and do our service. Because it's not our service. Right?
Because we are not assigned.
Yes, it's not our service, it's not our circle of influence. What did you want to say, somebody?
I want to say that it probably goes the other way too. That youngers would try to ask seniors what level of spiritual development you are, what you want to achieve, what is your problems, what you're endeavoring for. That would be the unused asking seniors about their level of advancement.
Well, definitely, that's pretty inappropriate. Yeah, so one has to know what kind of questions to ask, you know. Yeah, I mean, I've also had that experience where I was once, some young devotees were cooking for me and this and that, and they understood one should ask questions. But then the questions were really inappropriate. It was more some interrogating, you know. I felt like in some, I don't know, some police office or something, you know, some interrogation. So, and what happened then? And what did you do then? And how about this? And, you know, it's a bit inappropriate way of asking questions. Yes. Comes also when we are not asking in humility, but from some superior position, trying to find out what the person did there or something. You know, it's a subtle thing, but it can be really inappropriate. Let's move on to a couple more, and whatever we don't manage today, we can continue tomorrow. Now another really important thing. I hope you can all still listen and you're not too tired. Are you tired? No. Little? Okay. Because this one is also really important. Should be stably situated within his/her own ashram. This is a really important one. We have to be stably situated in one of the ashrams. Who can tell me, why is this so important? Not always you, let the others also say something. Okay, Madhuri.
Because if we are not very comfortable with our own ashram, then when the counselor will come and ask us a question, we won't be able to guide him or her properly. Because we ourselves would be uncomfortable. And if the person asks a similar question, we won't be able to guide that person for his or her maximum spiritual benefit. Because we ourselves are in doubt or we have some problem going on. Like if I'm with the counselor that we have, and a person that is coming to ask a question about his or her future grihast life, and we are having our own problem, then the answer would be negative. It won't be beneficial for him or her.
Yes, yeah, that's one reason. Yeah, it's good. You know, if we are not properly situated in our own ashram, let's say we have some big marriage problems there ourselves, and then somebody asks us for advice, it's difficult to give the right advice then. Yeah, that's one reason, but there's another reason.
Ashram is shelter also.
Ashram is also shelter, yes. And what is there if we are not properly situated in our ashram?
So we have our own needs, we are not emotionally situated.
Exactly. If we are not properly situated in one ashram, it means there are some unfulfilled needs. Right? Let's say a man is not married, but he is also not a brahmachari. Well, then there is some unfulfilled needs, obviously, otherwise he would be a brahmachari. Or same for a woman, if a lady is not married, but she's also not in the renounced order, well, then there's some unfulfilled need. And that need easily enters that sheltering relationship. And then what happens is, the next point, they actually belong together, should have healthy and appropriate ways of fulfilling financial, emotional and managerial needs, and thus never exploit his/her dependence for those needs. Right? Yes. So, yeah, every ashram gives protection, it gives clear duties, it gives a whole frame how to fulfill one's needs. And being stably situated in one's ashram doesn't mean only, yes, I'm a brahmachari, I'm a grihastha. Even as a brahmachari, we might be externally a brahmachari, but we might not be properly situated. We might just be in the ashram because we don't like the idea of having to maintain a family, and in the temple it's just more cozy, and you have a place to sleep and something to eat, and you don't have to work so hard. But still, there might be so many unfulfilled needs. Or a person might be married, but still there might be financial needs which are not in a healthy way covered. There might be emotional dissatisfactions because there's so much problems in the marriage. So, and then again, there's unfulfilled needs, and that very easily enters that relationship with the counseling. I've seen it. Even in financial things, yeah, that when we don't have healthy ways as a counselor, let's say a grihastha couple, if the grihastha couple doesn't have healthy ways of fulfilling their financial needs outside of the counselor relationship, then very easily it infiltrates, and then the person hopes that the counselee gives some donations or something, and then everything gets mixed up there, you know. In fact, one should always clearly keep any financial dealings, like doing business together or any kind of money dealings. There shouldn't be any kind of financial dependence between counselor and counselees, because that financial dependence very easily can clash with a spiritual interest, right? Let's say you work in the business of your counselor. Not a good idea. Because then the working relationship and the financial dependence of the counselee towards the counselor mixes, and also from the counselor side, he might need that person in his business. Makes a whole porridge there, right? Simply the needs and interests will clash. So that's why this because if one doesn't clearly understand that, a person might think, yeah, I'm the counselor for this person, okay, let me employ him and help him this way. Not a good idea. It will bring problems, tension, some unwanted clash of interest there. So it's best to really keep any kind of financial dealings out of this sheltering relationship, you know? Or emotional dealings, emotional dependence. One should not allow oneself to become emotionally dependent. Ideally from neither side. You know, this emotional dependence is a material dependence, and that these emotional needs should be satisfied in family relationship, not in a spiritual relationship. It will clash, it will cloudy, it will contaminate actually the relationship. Yeah, so very important, you know.
Sometimes the spiritual master, saying with disciples, necessity to embrace or patronize.
Oh, well, that's all right. So sometimes he's saying sometimes the master sees his disciple sad and he feels like hugging him or giving him a clap. He can do that without emotional entanglement and need. You know?
It cannot be misunderstood. He has someone.
No. I mean, if it is so, it will sooner or later come to the surface, and because that's a disqualification. A guru cannot be dependent on his disciples' emotional support there or something. My God, no, guru has to be aloof of all these emotional needs and. He cannot be emotionally needy, my God. No. That will cloud his vision and it will make him incapable to do what he needs to do in order to uplift the disciple.
That's why he's saying all accusations and assumptions.
Yeah, see, Prabhupada was crying when a disciple left Krishna consciousness, but that doesn't mean it's some emotional thing. You know? Prabhupada's crying was simply that he lamented, oh, this person fell in Maya, I couldn't save him. So it's not, oh, I'm missing him, and oh, you know, a completely different emotion. Right? So we can't mix that up.
Two people, Vaishnavas also may, are, you know, when they are waiting after a long time or something, on some special occasions, just give a normal.
Yeah, that's all right. Nothing against hugging, you know, of course. But there shouldn't be some emotional dependence that you need this hug, otherwise you emotionally can't survive or something. Then the hug is not given selflessly, then it is some subtle selfishness there that you are in need of a hug. No, hugs can be given selflessly. That's one how Vaishnavas greet each other by giving each other a hug. That's no problem. There's nothing wrong with that, but it should be without emotional neediness.
And if it is inculcated,
purposefully,
if it is inculcated in young minds and young devotees, you have to hug it every time, you have to say, that is something you have to be careful.
I don't understand. No, nobody's making a rule that we have to hug all the time. No. So, it's an individual thing. Some people like it, some people don't like it. But what we are saying is that we should not emotionally be needy. It doesn't mean we can't hug or something, but there should not be that emotional need there. Right? Emotional needs, to satisfy emotional needs, that's what family life is for. If a person is emotionally needy, he or she has to be married. And the family relationships are therefore to fulfill the emotional needs. That frees all other relationships from the emotional needs. That's the point, because these emotional needs, somewhat in a subtle way, they contaminate relationships. They make them less transcendental. So that's why family relationships are there to fulfill the emotional needs, and that frees these relationships so we can be truly, selfless in our dealings. This is also important for ladies, because we women have been given higher emotional needs, so we can play the role of being a mother nicely. Otherwise we wouldn't want to play it if we didn't have these emotional needs, because a baby is helplessly dependent on the mother's care and affection. So if a mother had a man's mood, she might forget that she has a baby or something, because men don't have these emotional needs so much. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not joking, it's really like that. So, and for example, in Ukraine, they're taking this point very seriously. They don't allow unmarried ladies who are not firmly established in the renounced order of life, they don't allow or encourage them to be a mentor. Yes, because we've seen it all in different parts of the world there, or in different parts of Ukraine. We had that experience when unmarried ladies who are not properly situated, then very easily the counselee becomes the source of emotional fulfillment. And the person makes the counselee emotionally dependent on them. And then the person also easily discourages the young girls from getting married, because then they lose their source of emotional fulfillment. Right? Yes? Yes, they don't want that she gets married, because then she has her husband for her emotional fulfillment and not her anymore. So that's why they don't encourage at all that single ladies who are not firmly established in the renounced mood to act as a counselor. Yeah, not a good idea. Yes. Yes.
If some financial and managerial motive is there in relationship with the counselor and counseling, if counselor understand that my counselor has all these motives, what should he do or she?
So what should the counselee do if he sees that my counselor has some managerial, emotional, financial motive? Well, then he should be careful to what extent he can really take shelter. I mean, see, this is a general thing. As I mentioned yesterday, if you look at the whole list here of qualifications, you might come to this conclusion, wow, I don't even hardly know anybody who fits that category, right? So, I mean, the list is there, and we want to strive for the ideal, but at the same time we can't also be, like Prabhupada said, don't expect utopia. We can't be too idealistic in a sense that we say, oh well, I don't know anybody, so I can't have sheltering relationships. No need to try because there's not such a perfect person around. No, we simply have to work with what we got. And this whole giving and accepting shelter, it's really like a churning process. All the anatas are being churned on both sides. Even from the shelter giver, it will expose him sooner or later that he's got some motives there. Sooner or later it will come up in his dealings. So difficulties have to be expected, but it is a churning process. Right? Even married life, also churning process. Difficulties are there. We are not coming to the conclusion that, okay, no need to get married life, let's throw it out the window and get rid of it, just because there are difficulties there. No, the difficulties are there because of our anatas, because we're not selfless servants. That's why the difficulties are there. So, and the whole thing is a churning process. So same thing in this giving and accepting shelter. Sometimes I come across this, that devotees say, oh yeah, we tried that. Oh, doesn't work. So much difficulty, so many disappointments. No, we stopped endeavoring for it. It's quite often people think like this, you know. Yeah, but that's the wrong conclusion. No, the difficulties are there because we have so many anatas there, and the whole thing will qualify us. So even if, you know, some counselors are not fitting all these qualities perfectly, well, that's why I was saying yesterday, not to have that mood that yes, complete surrender. No, we simply see how much we can accept guidance from which person, to how much extent, and we might have one person who we like to accept guidance in this particular field of our life, and another person in that field of our life, and gradually we have to get the process going. And then as we, you know, facilitate and promote this more, people will come up and people will become more qualified. I mean, it's even with any you know, position. Let's remember how Prabhupada established the GBC with 23-year-old boys who were in for 4 years in the movement or something, and they had to play the role of GBCs, even though they were not very mature devotees. Even being guru, first generation, so many mistakes were made, so many couldn't maintain, and somehow we have to get it going, you know? Even the way Prabhupada gave sannyas, Prabhupada knew that so many people would not be able to maintain it, but still he had to establish the sannyas ashram somehow or other. He had to get it going, and then gradually the level becomes higher. So it's a similar principle in this regards also. We might be thinking now, oh, nobody fits the category, but now let's get it going somehow, and then over several generations people will become more qualified, right? Yes. Yes.
Can I just say it again? This habit of inculcating, this act of inculcating and writing or arguing, it's small children. It could be actually an abuse, a form of abuse, which is, you know.
Yes. Anyway, I don't really. Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. I don't really want to go in that direction, but it's a fact. If there's some unfulfilled need, that's why I was mentioning in regards to children, the only bona fide touch is head, giving blessings, nothing else. No slap on the bum of the young girls or anything. You know, this is, oh yeah, goes already in a subtle abuse there, fulfilling one's needs there, and so on. Yeah, no, it's true. It's a good point. Just, yeah, we're running a little short in time. Yes.
Well, if I understood correctly, like a few points before, you said that the authorities are the one who assign the juniors, the counselors. But these days, not many people are practicing this whole process. What should be done then? Because like in Calcutta and Bhakti Vish, what happens is you somehow automatically come under a servant leader once you enter it. So you don't get to analyze or know other senior leaders better before choosing one. It just automatically happens. So what should be done?
Yeah, I mean, are you still here tomorrow, or are you going to Calcutta tomorrow? Yes. The Bhakti Vriksha principle is a little different than the counselor system, even though there is also similarities there. But Bhakti Vriksha, for example, is not for seniors, it's for newcomers. Bhakti Vriksha is not for the temple brahmacharis. Temple president is not part of a Bhakti Vriksha group. You know? So it's more the spirit of outreach towards newcomers. And as far as I know, the group goes for 1.5 years and then people can become Bhakti Vriksha leader or something, more or less. Yes, so counselor system, mentoring system is a little different. First of all, the mentors have to be much more qualified, they have to be much more senior, much more mature. Not after 1.5 years of following the Bhakti Vriksha thing, they can become servant leader or something. No, no, no. They have to be much more mature. And it's an ongoing relationship for everybody. Everybody should have a counselor. Even gurus should have a mentor. Temple presidents, everybody. So it's a little similar, but then also different. You know? Yes.
But can they be a counselor if they have been for maybe 4 or 5 years and they have experience? And
well, if they're, you know, on the way, if they're on the way to develop these relationships, yes. I mean, they're also playing that role of being a mentor also, you know. But it is just more limited to a certain group of devotees, the congregational newcomers. Whereas the mentoring and counselor idea understands that anybody should have a counsel for their whole life. Or at any, doesn't have to be the same counsel for their whole life, but for their whole, you know, practice, they should be sheltered. They have to have sheltering relationships. So it can be for the first few years one person, and then they move on maybe in a slightly different mood, and they find a different sheltering relationship or something. But at any time within one's spiritual practice, one should have sheltering relationships. Even more so when we are senior. The more senior we become, the more we need it. So that understanding is not in the Bhakti Vriksha thing there, you know. Okay, so at 6 o'clock, quickly let's do our final exercise. Turn to your neighbor and share. What are you taking out of here? Realization of this afternoon session. Quickly, 2 minutes. Share something.